Good morning. I'd like to call the January 17, 2025 meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development to order. My name is Councillor Jeff Rawadi. I'm the councillor for the North Godolphin Ward and I serve as the committee's chair. With me this morning, we have Councillor Matt Allard from the St. Boniface Ward and Councillor Janice Lukes from the West Ward. We also have members of the public service with us. Our committee clerk is Brendan Harris and our CFO is Tracy Graham. At this point, I would like to acknowledge that Winnipeg is located in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Okay, Councillor Allard, would you care to move that the minutes of the meeting held on November 27, 2024 be taken as read and confirmed?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Councillor Lukes, would you care to move that we adjust the meeting order slightly? We'll move delegations first, followed by report 1 and 3, I suppose, followed by the rest of the agenda, including the budget review.
Sure.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Delegations.
And was it going to be
Councillor Allard.
Sorry? Oh, yes, Councillor Allard moves.
Move the leave of absence for Councillor Oloko for personal and family matter.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
So with that, we can move into delegations. We have one delegation today, David Grant, to be heard in opposition to the preliminary 2025 budget update, budget review item 2, and the over expenditure authorization for the Winnipeg Police Service 2024 operating budget. David, I will ask you to turn on your camera. I see you have. You'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Hey, thank you. And welcome. It's good to see things getting underway and being handled so efficiently. On report 1, years ago, council set budgets, called them balanced, and called for managers to make substantial spending reductions to achieve that balance. All of this gave us great hope. Sadly, there's no sign that the balance message was the subject of ongoing discussions between the finance team, council, and the managers who are expected to make major spending cuts. Was that a flaw that was fatal to those reductions? Could you have done better? Rhetorical question. After years of those managers failing to meet their targets and facing no deterrent consequences, most of us have lost that hope that we once had. There are clear lessons learned from the past few years of deficit spending. City management has learned that spending need not be constrained. Council has also learned over the same years that they have no reason to delay or cancel any unaffordable new spending plan. Proof? Look at all the multi-million-dollar buildings and programs that have been approved. Here's an example from your budget document of a manager who failed to reduce spending. Quotes that approval be given to the Winnipeg Police Service to overexpend its 2024 operating budget by $2.18 million. And then it goes into all the details. And then it ends with increase in traffic enforcement contract expense, $430,000, total $2.18 million. I ask, why does one of our favorite cash cows, the PE contract, need an injection of $430,000? That was not explained in these documents. In more than 20 years, why has the city not released any safety improvement report to the public? Such reports are not hard to do. They're required by law. Everyone involved knows that PE is being operated unlawfully, but does nothing. On the budget review topic, during the Public Works meeting yesterday, the topic of sources of funding was explored by another delegate, the PW committee, and me. Former Councillor Chris Lawrence and the heavy construction companies want you to find more funding so his people will have more heavy projects to work on. I like the way he explained a future where the city and province could shift who pays and on what. He quoted Ontario, but their program never happened. I brought up Michigan. They did some major source shifting many years ago. They cut property taxes on homes and businesses in exchange for a 2% increase in sales tax. It balanced out. This helped everyone in every corner of the state. I suggest that we could do that in Manitoba. The province increases the sales tax directly in response to the municipalities cutting their taxation. That they would take over spending, the province would take over spending on things like sewage plants and major capital projects. The city would drop their taxes and drop overall spending. And in that way, Michigan sold it to their people quite happily. They actually had a referendum. Everybody in the state voted, and the majority wanted this new system. On the other hand, those who pay taxes have slightly different priorities than what we hear in the news. We care about the tax load that future generations will face. Some of us want fewer such new projects. New topic. Why does the city not use a process like Hydro's NF/AT evaluations needs for alternatives too? As soon as any new spending idea comes forward, I have asked this question of the SPCs. That's not their business, they say. They all act as if careful spending is either foreign or some kind of enemy. Why, when an idea such as a new police building or sports facility is proposed, NFAT would require the proponent to explain not only why, because they do that well now, but also explain every possible alternative and the consequences of delay or abandoning the project. Those who use a process like NFAT tend not to run out of money. They tend to spend less on things that are not really needed. It really is time for the city to consider this. Right now, a powerful councillor is allowed to spend on what could be termed pet projects. Anyone who suggests that we not spend on such a project may be treated as the enemy. NFAT, if applied, should be run citywide. On the topic of the Winnipeg Parking Authority, WPA, once upon a time, street parking was a service offered for a price by the city. Its primary goal, because it didn't make much money, its primary goal was to make sure that street parking was available where people needed it. And people who wanted to park all day, every day for work would not use up the few spots on the street. So it was a good system. But the idea of it being offered as a service, those days seem to be gone. Lost is any hope that WPA would be inclusive with its customer base. The city goes out of its way to be inclusive in many ways, but the parking folks do not. The same demographic that struggles to get around snow piles to find a parking machine are also least likely to use the WP app on a phone. WPA has been actively chasing this demographic out of downtown with their profit-seeking policies. To offer this service in an inclusive way would require more vending machines. Sadly, this is not where WPA says they're going, and they're boasting to you about the amount of profit they make, the amount they contribute to city coffers, and that's good to see a department doing that, but this is at the expense of the differently abled. Anyway, WPA also does not spell out how effective they are at school parking enforcement. This is a safety issue. If they and the schools were effective, there would be no offending vehicles near any school. When WPA surveys a school, and they boast about doing that, are there no offending vehicles? Do they have a really good rate of compliance? And we don't see this data in their report. On snow zone tickets, are they to teach drivers or to collect income? Does the WPA have any data on the demographics most likely to violate these zones? On my street, the only regular offenders are some ESL students. I get along well with them and remind them on snow day, but they barely understand the snow zone rules. If we really seek compliance across the city, has the WPA developed tools to get their snow zone messaging out to newcomers? They do a great job of the ticketing and collecting income, but preventing this parking offense would be a far better idea. And I thank you very much for the time to bring these all to your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item 1 of the regular agenda, which is regular one of the regular agenda, with the over expenditure authorization for the Winnipeg Police Service 2024 operating budget, unrealized budget expenditure management savings. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we start, I want to introduce Jeffrey Wiggett, who is the new secretary or executive director to the Winnipeg Police Board, replacing Shauna Curtin, who departed in January.
Welcome aboard.
This month. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll turn it over to acting chief Art Stannard.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here today. First, happy New Year to all of you. So the last meeting you had, we asked for this to be tabled, held over to this meeting. And we did that because we needed to put a report into safeguard our year end. So what I mean by that is the timing of the committees are not lining up really well. So for instance, you're dealing with a Q3 report today. Well, that's 4 months ago or 3 months ago. So we had to base our over expenditure report on that report, even though we knew that Q4 would be looking positive for some savings and stuff like that. So we had to do that just to safeguard that. So I would hope maybe I know it's maybe too late this year, but maybe in 26 we look at different timing that we can get the reports back to you so you can make some more informed decisions, some timely decisions. So it's a frustration for us because we just heard a delegate about being overspent for 2024. It's my pleasure to say we're not, and we're on budget. And it's also my pleasure to tell you that I just came from a budget meeting last night, late afternoon and this morning, and we're going to be giving back more than 2.5 plus into the coffers. So
Wow.
Say that again.
Wow.
yeah, if it was bad news, I wouldn't be here. So, but that is good news.
There's
And,
my deputy, yeah.
but it's good news, and do we take credit? Yeah, we take some credit for accountability for budgets and overtime and stuff, but also it's also call driven. It's police driven as well. But we're pleased to say that it's going to be at least 2.5 plus given back to the coffers for 2024.
Why are we trying to hire a new chief? Sorry, no.
No. Well, okay. But anyways, having said that, I want to thank, of course, we have an amazing finance unit in the Winnipeg Police Service that is just keeps us online, keeps us accountable. We have amazing leadership and also sergeants at the front lines holding people accountable. We truly do take our budget seriously, and we do make some tough decisions. So I'm pleased to say that. So I think, I know item 3 is not here yet, so you could probably just take that as information only and table it.
Yeah.
So
So again, on behalf of everybody here at City Hall, just appreciation to you, acting deputy chief, for serving in this role. Police board, acting chief, to everybody at
getting
the
lower and lower.
acting chief, to everybody at the police board, and to all the staff and everybody who's worked hard to reach these targets. I know it's not easy, so I very much want to say thank you.
Thank you. And it was a challenge, but we also said that the Spanish management court accounted 7 million to address this, all which we did. So we're pleased. Yeah, we're very happy on this. Thank you.
Again, so it's going to be good news once everything finally settles. So we have reports 1 and 3. We'll do them, I guess, one at a time, maybe. Report 1. Somebody want to move to just receive his information or file it even?
His information, sure.
Sure, to receive his information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And then report 3, which is the third quarter financial report.
So just you're coming back and you'll highlight in more detail where you found the savings
Yes.
and
Yeah.
all of that.
I can just say, just generally speaking, it's both revenue and expenses. There's some savings on both, but we're just doing year end this week. It has to, of course, go to city finance for the final confirmation and stuff, but it's very positive. So yeah, it's not flushed out yet in detail, but we're going to report that to the police board first, and then we'll come up to this committee after that. So.
Can I never know if I can ask a question.
Please, go ahead.
This files.
Well,
So do you have any little update that you could provide on photo enforcement conversations with the province?
I think it's best and not probably the wrong door. I think probably the
Okay,
police.
all right, that's fine.
Yeah. Not
Okay.
that we're not willing to answer that question, but
Sure.
probably just follow the same
Sure.
procedure. So,
Fine.
that's fine.
All right, I'll move report number 3.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
have a great day. Thanks for coming this morning. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll now move into the 2025 budget review.
You're not doing
the desire to do.
item
Oh, the police board, we got the police board person here too, so somebody moves central rules to deal with the police award report.
I'll move.
Thank you, all those in favor, opposed, carried, so report number 2, Winnipeg Police Board, vote. Thank you.
Yes, as as mentioned, Jeffrey Wiggett is here as the new executive director of the Winnipeg Police Board. I don't know if you feel comfortable in presenting the budget or if you want me to do it.
I'm happy to speak to a couple of the points and then if there are any questions.
And before you do, I just want to thank the Winnipeg Police Service as well in terms of coming back and indicating that they will be returning money back to city coffers. It's realized that, you know, the Winnipeg Police Service doesn't, stop service after budget runs out. They're mandated service and have to operate 365 days of the year. So, this has not been, 2024 has not been an exceptional year in the sense of crime or calls for service. It's over 40 homicides. Those take a lot of resources to investigate and all of the other issues that we have in the city of Winnipeg. So for them to come back with a savings and return that to the city of Winnipeg, I really believe it does demonstrate their dedication to the work that they do and recognizing the delicate dance that is the budget. So I want to thank them for all of their work in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you, Councillor. So just a couple items I'll highlight in this third quarter update. We are expecting to see some money be on the table to return when it comes to things like office operations and travel. The last item on the update where it refers to board member meeting participation, you'll note that there's no value prescribed in the budget, though there are expenses incurred by the board in that regard, and that results just from a misalignment in terms of the line items that are present in the city budget versus the obligation of the board to pay honorariums to citizen appointed members to attend board meetings and conferences and things like that regard. So that's why it shows an expense on that line that on paper seems as though it's not budgeted for, though the board internally takes account and allocates within in that regard. So those are a couple items I wanted to highlight, subject to any questions you may have.
Well, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, and just to note that through 2025, we'll be working on our 4-year strategic plan once the new chief is hired. And that will be a very consultative process where we're out in the community, defining what the community needs, values, and expectations are as we roll that into a new 4-year strategic plan.
Okay. Portsmouth moved. Okay, thank you, Councillor Lukes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll jump up to the 2025 budget review.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe out there.
Right transit. Oh, Heathrow.
We're gonna box.
Like the old thing.
Budget in a box. That's good. Okay.
On
Good morning. Morning.
While we queue up, joining me today for the service-based budget presentation is Tim Austin, the city assessor, Hannah Stanchician, manager of finance for the Department of Assessment and Taxation, along with Randy Bernard, the campus finance manager. The first budget presentation covers taxation as well as the central finance functions, which includes treasury accounting, accounts payable, budgeting, risk, and purchasing. Economic development will present separately and after this presentation. The agenda for today covers service highlights followed by performance reporting, and then we'll review the highlights with more detail under the service-based budget as noted here in item number 4. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Hi, good morning. We're on the next slide. So we'll walk through the presentation and the slide deck. And we'll start with this slide here, which is the service highlights for the service assessment, taxation, and corporate. and includes three sub-services, which is Assessment Taxation Department, Financial Management, and Corporate. Some of our key achievements in 2024 is that we successfully added the Manitoba school tax rebate to the annual property tax bill. That was no small feat, as it took us about 3 months to do programming to make sure that we had the bill and calculated correctly on the annual tax bill. In addition, in 2024, we've issued the 2025 property assessment notices as well as the business assessment notices. This is a year of a general assessment where all properties and businesses, this assessment are updated to reflect the new reference date of April 1st, 2023 to the current market values. The citywide average increase for property assessments is approximately 9.5%. Our future plans, there's a couple of them here, is really focused on the implementation of our new CAMA system, which is our computer-aided mass appraisal system. We expect that to be fully implemented by 2027. The department is also and continues to support the 2025 assessed values that were sent out in 2024 at the Board of Revision and subsequently at the Municipal Board if people filed at the second level. The last item that we have that we are currently working on is reprogramming our tax system in order to remove the Manitoba school tax credit from the 2025 property tax bill for all properties other than farm. So farm properties still maintain a credit, as well as adding the new homeowners affordability tax credit advance, which replaces the education property tax credit advance from the province of Manitoba. We do have one substantial risk for 2025, and it's related to our net taxes added or supplemental taxes. As you can see on the slide, in 2024, we were short in revenue by 10.6 million. And we were a little short in 2023 as well. A lot of this is based on reduced construction that we've seen and timing of projects. So looking forward to 2025, pardon me, we do not expect to reach our budget target of $18 million. So we do have a risk list included with our budget.
Please, yeah.
So, I didn't get back to you on that address, but when we do assessments, is CAMA going to improve the timeframe of when we do assessing finished properties? Like how do we speed that up?
Yeah, CAMA is our system itself that people will plug in property attributes if it's a new building or a new house, add the house, add the building, and that helps us produce the assessed value on those things. We get people out looking at closed permits, looking at buildings that have been improved, and that takes some time. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get information from property owners.
But
the CAMA
like
system,
2 years, some guy saying he wasn't assessed on his new block.
Yeah, we can go back under legislation. We can add the current year plus one. Based on averages that we've done and we've seen, we've improved our time on average.
Yeah.
Right. Some properties take longer, some are quicker. On average, we are less than a year before we add improvement. So that's an improvement about 3 to 4 months from a number of years ago. The new system itself will include efficiencies with the system itself to help us with better reporting, being more transparent to property owners and business owners within the city of Winnipeg.
But so do you have to send someone out to physically assess these new blocks or?
A lot of it can be done through the desktop and through conversations with the developers. We do physical inspections. We do head out.
To help do this or?
That's a good question. Our valuation staff, we have 68 valuation staff that look after assessing the approximately 250,000 properties. Pardon me. In comparison, that's about 3,700 properties per person. That's an increase since 2008 of 18%. So the city has grown in property count by 18%. So that adds about 500 to 600 properties on average to each evaluation staff. So it is a bit of time. If we want to stay at that same level that we had in 2008 when property assessment and the taxation department merged, we would need additional 12 staff. So certainly staff would help get to different things. There's a lot of different pressures that we face, Councillor. A 2-year assessment cycle that we've been in since 2010. We are at the Board of Revision more often than we were during a 4-year cycle. On average, that's about 600 more applications that we deal with in a 4-year period, which all takes time away from other evaluation things. When we look at what we've been adding, we are more current than we've ever been. A lot of that had to do with the Manitoba school tax rebate. We wanted to get properties on the roll so they would get their rebate. So that was important, and we narrowed that time down, but it does come at a cost. It does cause some stress and some can't think of the word, but some issues, and when it comes to staffing and trying to reallocate resources to make sure we get everything done in a timely manner.
Mhm. Yeah, I just, I'm hearing it from the end of, it impacts, you know, they estimate what they think it would be, they estimate what they put away. But if buildings are flipped or sold, it delays the sale because they don't really know what the taxes are, so.
You know, anybody could give us a call as well if they have. We do receive numbers of calls from developers say, hey, our building, we finished our building a month ago. Can you come out and have a look at it, or here's some information, or we can have those conversations, and we do have those conversations. We're open to talk to anybody in the city of Winnipeg related to property or business assessment.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Lund.
I think it's along the same lines of questions, perhaps, but so we can go legislatively a year back on assessment?
Correct. So as of today's date, we can go back to January 1st of 2024.
Okay, given that, are there any cases where we don't have the staffing and or we don't get to that on time, and in those events are we leaving tax dollars on the table if that happens?
No, there's the, well, I shouldn't say no further. There's the odd time, and very, you know, it might be a December 2023 for an example. We are very current. We do take pride in getting things on the roll as best we can in a timely fashion. And we react to the information that we have. So, and we get that information through closed permits, through going out and doing inspections of properties or driving through areas and saying, hey, that building's done. We also do desktop reviews and looking at maps and check things out. I would say that I'm confident that we don't leave taxes. We don't drop taxes off the roll.
Okay, and on that, so that sounds like that end is more or less okay. In terms of capturing the property values, in the event where a permit is not yet inspected, like at what point does the net new value get applied to the new property as part of the permitting system? We hear about permit backlogs.
Yeah,
do we only get the lift once it's all said and done?
Yeah, I don't do the work, so I'm going to talk in high level. We look for permits. We know what permits are open. For an example, for a build, we do see when they're closed. That will trigger us to contact the property owner or do an inspection of the property and try to gather the information to properly assess. And that takes a bit of time. So we use the tools that we have in order to add assessments to the roll. It depending on the time of year for net taxes added, for example, being more current. If something's added, for example, in October or completed a house in October of 2024, we would like to have it done before tax bill update. And that's normally done like in April. So we want those adjustments done by March. We get a lot of them done. So there's 2 months of net taxes added only because we go back to October of 2024, for an example. In prior years, when we weren't quite as current, we would do them after tax bill update, and then we would have 14 months of net taxes added. So they're going in different spots, right? We're capturing more at
You
time
made
of
budgeting
billing.
harder for us.
We're trying not to, but
More specific.
But we do see, and we have seen in the past couple of years, that our annual billing has been higher than budget, and a lot of that has to do with us being more current with adding properties to the roll.
Okay, going on a hypothetical, and I realize that the permit section is not your purview, though a completed permit will trigger something on your end in terms of reevaluating the property. So might there be work to do in terms of getting faster lifts if those permits were to get through the system faster?
So if I understand your question correctly, so let me, I'm gonna,
Okay,
I'm gonna ask.
make it even more simple. If all the permits that are outstanding today were to get done, inspected, what would that mean for the city's bottom line? What would that mean for the average taxpayer? Presumably, it would mean very little for how much we actually collect in taxes, given we raise.
Yeah, it's, it's, to speculate on an answer here a little bit, we might be able to get out the supplemental bills a little bit quicker. And more, a little bit timelier to property owners. It won't, and that may impact, well, no, sorry, I'll check that. It doesn't really impact our supplemental tax billing at all, right? Because it's based on the number of days and the assessed value of the property. So it might just, we might see, even a narrower time gap of us adding properties to the roll. Instead of 9 months or 10 months that we're currently at, we might be down on average to maybe 7 or 8.
But we still get that money anyway, because we can backdate to
we still,
as far as a year back.
correct. Yeah, and we go from when the improvement's been done, and we talk to property owners and say, okay, on a commercial building, when's it complete? When they've completed and resolved, we look at occupancy when that's in. For homes, when did the person move in? Inspections are done, right? Those are all things that we, they're kind of put a line in the sand, and that's where we start from as a start date.
Yes. 2 more, Councillor, if that's okay.
All right.
Okay, Councillor Rawadi's been explaining this to me for years, and I think I'm finally getting some of it. So if I reverse the question in terms of if there are permits that are taking more than the 1 year statutory allowance that we have, does that mean that we're leaving tax dollars on the table?
No.
Or does that mean that the persons who, I guess the base, does that mean that the people who are paying are those who don't yet have their permits in the system in terms of the net new?
Yeah, so those are probably, and I'm going to use an example of 300 Main Street here. That's a larger property. And that took years to construct. We have in legislation the ability, once 2 years hits from the shovel in the ground, to increment, to assess based on what's there. Okay. So if the permit and it's a longer construction project and it's taking more than 2 years, we can assess on what's there. If they have the frame of the building up, we can add value.
And in that event,
homes are very seldom take that long. Homes are built really quick, right?
But in that event,
I mean, the income stream, obviously, from a apartment block without an occupancy permit, how do you come up with the value?
Yeah, the value it's based on a lot of the cost at that point and where it's at. We don't get into income valuation at that point in time because there is no income.
I mean, they still do appraisals like to prove that an apartment block after being constructed is worth less than what it actually costs to physically build in some cases to get GST rebates.
It depends what people are arguing.
Yeah, I don't know about that, to be sure. So I'll stay silent on that. But there is legislation that allows us to incrementally assess when there's delays in projects or projects are taking longer than what's expected.
I sense my time is growing.
No.
Well, like I guess the more general idea I have is, are there opportunities if there were resources that might be granted either through consultant fees or through more staff to be more proactive? I don't want to say that you're not currently proactive, but if we were to say, go and inspect some of these properties every 2 years as a rule systematically, if we were able to find those tax dollars, wouldn't that mean everybody's tax bill would go down a little bit?
No,
relatively.
No, it's it's all based on assessed value, right? And
but the mill rate,
the mill rate may change based on the assessment growth in the roll,
right?
But there's also council decisions that make on property tax increases as well.
All things being equal, all being equal.
Yeah, so we capture growth, so growth raises and increases.
Yeah.
General assessment is really a reevaluation of the whole city to make sure that property taxes are equitable amongst all property owners in the city of Winnipeg.
Okay, I'm done for that, Councilor Bryan.
Sure. So what you're saying though is like, we're not leaving anything on the table in terms of losing out because we haven't assessed somebody in time. That, again, we may not,
That's
we get the money eventually for any new property. We're not typically losing out on anything that's been built and not assessed because it's too far back.
Correct. And we certainly try to be very current with our assessments because that's good customer service.
Different angle. I mean, if net taxes added and properties being added are less, can we work with less assessors? We have a new camera system that's gonna be more automated and have more bells and whistles. Can we reduce the number of assessors based on the fact we're adding less new properties and the fact that we've got a new system?
No, there's certainly enough work to go around and maintain us. We are challenged a lot through the Board of Revision and Municipal Board. There's currently a backlog of appeals at the Municipal Board of approximately 2,000 that we currently deal with, and that's a substantial process. For one file at the Municipal Board, it takes months for one assessor to work on, and that's really what they're working on. So we could always, use more staff to get more kind of boots on the ground to get that more information and get the data. That data is normally then reviewed by the next level assessors or evaluation staff before it gets entered into the system. The system will help us really report better, do a general assessment, what I can see. We haven't done it yet, but in a new system, but be more efficient, be a little bit quicker in that and being able to get the values out to the
When you say there's like
earlier.
a couple thousand assessments outstanding, and it takes an assessor several months, I mean, those are typically not your typical residential property where, Bob appeals his assessment because he feels it's paying too much taxes and,
Yeah, we Municipal Board, at the Municipal Board, we do see more commercial properties, right?
I should know this, but I don't.
Yeah, we do see more. I don't have the count in front of me, but we do see more than residential properties. But residential property owners can file appeal to Municipal Board or the
Right.
King's Bench.
But those don't take months for an assessor to prepare, I don't.
No, that takes a little bit less. Residential appeals are a little bit simpler, for lack of a better word, to do. Not as complex as large commercial buildings or properties with different revenue streams.
The amount of time invested in supporting an appeal, I hope, is commensurate with the value of the property being dealt with, or generally.
Not necessarily.
No.
There's some large properties that have a lot of complexities to them.
Okay.
And there's some properties that have a higher assessed value that are, one or two revenue streams.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Let's move on to the presentation.
thank you. Next slide. This slide shows the goal of delivery of timely, accurate tax billing and collection service, with the measure being current year's property taxes as a percentage of the current year levy. In 2022 and 2023, the results are pretty consistent at 1.2% and 1%, respectively. In 2024 and 25, our target is a 1% of current property taxes as arrears as a percentage of the current levy. The slide to the right shows the city of Winnipeg against similar municipalities. And we're leading the charge there at 1% based on 2023 information. Slide, Randy, thank you. This slide outlines our service-based view of the departments for assessment, taxation, corporate accounts, and financial management. For 2025, the departments have a combined mill rate contribution of $1,056,000,000 and $312,000 in the capital budget. Assessment taxation has 125.87 FTEs and contributes $900.2 million to the mill rate and has a capital budget of $312,000, which is a project that is within the innovation and technology department. Our financial management or corporate finance has 84.75 employees and draws on the mill rate or needs the mill rate support of $8.8 million. The corporate accounts contribute $165.2 million and also manages 5 city reserves. The total net income of all 5 reserves is projected to be $4.3 million for 2025. And we'll get a little bit more into reserves later in the presentation. So our service-based budget, this view is our budget overview for operating and revenue expenditures by category for the service. As you can see, the preliminary budget is 1,995,000,000. That's hard to say sometimes. This revenue includes property taxes of $745.9 million, or 73% of the total revenue. Business taxes are at 63.5 million. Provincial grants are 90.5. Other revenues such as electricity and gas tax, entertainment funding tax, local improvements and advertising sign tax is $31.9 million. Utility dividends is 42.5 and other corporate revenue is 68.3.
Sorry, what was business?
Business tax was 63.5 million.
And the property?
Property tax is $745.9 million. The other corporate revenues include such things as penalties, the sale of Winnipeg Hydro, transfers from revenue or reserve, dividends from fleet and parking, revenue sources from fees and charges, investment, interest, and general government charges. So that's on the revenue side. On the right side of the slide, we've got expenditures of $38.2 million. Salaries and benefits account for $26.3 million for all three subservices. Debt and finance charges are at $5.8 million. Goods and services are at $5.7. Other grants and transfers are also at $5.7 million and recoveries at $2.1. The transfer to capital is a negative $1 million. All recoveries include interdepartment recoveries from investment management fees for all city reserve accounts. So this slide outlines the changes in the 2025 budget submission from the adopted 2024 year over year for the service. For 2025, you can see the revenue has increased by $79.5 million and the expenditures have increased by $5.2 million for a net increase in the mill rate contribution of $74.3 million. The revenue increase is primarily due to an increase in property taxes of 5.95%. and includes growth in the assessment base as well. So the total increase in tax dollars is $52.2 million. There's a transfer to the financial stabilization reserve in 2024, $15.4 million. An increase in short-term investment interest of $3.8 million. An increase in business tax revenue of $3.5 million. There's also an increase in dividends of $2.5 million. There's an increase in provincial operating basket funding of $2 million. And this is all partially offset by a decrease in the transfer to the Destination Marketing Reserve Fund. The expenditures increase is primarily due to a one-time transfer to the general purpose reserve. The increase in the provision for contingency related to labor contracts of $2.1 million. Increase in debt and finance charges of $1.4 million. There's an increase to the financial stabilization reserve or transfer to the reserve of $400,000. And there's an increase in efficiency savings of $1.8 million. Thank you. So this slide compares the preliminary budget mill rate contribution to the amount projected as part of the 2024 budget. The 2025 preliminary budget has the service contributing $1,056,000,000 to the mill rate, which is an increase of $19.5 million from what was forecast in 2024's budget. The majority of the increase can be attributed to the additional property tax increase, which is 2.45%, which is the difference between the 3.5% that was included in the 2024 budget to the now 5.95%. And this totaled $17.57 billion in tax dollars. Other items that contributed to the change include maintaining the business tax rate at 4.84%, and this generated an additional $3.5 million in revenue. Short-term investment interest of $4 million. This revenue is offset by a reduced transfer to the Destination Marketing Reserve Fund of $1.5 million and $7 million to the Financial Stabilization Reserve. Also included is a delay in the planned 911 tariff of $3.75 million for a net increase to the mill rate contribution of 15.9 in 2025. So this slide outlines our total FTEs and salary and benefits for the service itself. In 2025, the service includes 210.62 FTEs and $26.32 million in salaries and benefit costs. Please note this includes a vacancy management amount of $686,000, which equates to roughly 8.18 FTEs. You can see over 2024 to 25, there's been an addition of 2 FTEs. This is due to a transfer of 1 clerk B from the Innovation Technology Group or department and the addition of 1 accounting technician, which is funded by the group life insurance plan. So now we'll move into our service-based capital budget. This is again for our service. The 2025 preliminary budget is $312,000, which is reduced from the 2024 adopted operating budget of $8.1 million. The 2025 budget is for 1 project. It's the Assessment and Taxation Systems Program, which is formerly known as the Assessment Automation Program. This continues to be used for system upgrades and rehabilitation of key systems for assessment and taxation that interface directly with our 2 main systems. For example, as regulatory changes occur, the department also needs to be able to respond to required system changes in a timely manner. The Innovation and Technology Group has assumed responsibility for the budget for this program starting in 24, but it's still part of this service. There have been no changes to the budget forecast for 2025 to 29 from the 2024 budget process. Just as a quick note, the 2024 adopted budget included $7.9 million related to our CAMA project, which is a computer-aided mass appraisal, which is currently on its way or underway. The other assessment taxation project is local improvements. These are included under the roadway construction and maintenance service program.
So the Assessment and Taxation Department manages 1 reserve, being the Destination Marketing Reserve. However, this reserve is reported as part of economic development, so that would be in the next presentation. However, there are 5 other reserves that fall under corporate finance. Very quickly, the Commitment Reserve is the purpose of this commitment reserve is to allow all departments to carry forward committed budgeted dollars to succeeding years, therefore eliminating the need to rebudget. This is an annual process that we're currently in the middle of. The Financial Stabilization Reserve, which we speak to often, in particular this year, is what we call the otherwise known as the Rainy Day Fund. As part, it is intended to be to retain a balance of 6% of the budgeted tax supported expenditures. Based on 2024, that amount would have been $81 million. Based on forecasted results for 2024, we are anticipating that this balance will be 0 by the end of 2024 when those results are finalized. The budget requires us to identify a means in which to rebuild the reserve. So that is what we'll be undertaking as in the next year, is to come up with a plan to rebuild the reserve. The General Purpose Reserve includes the carryover funds from the councillors' ward allowances and is permitted for use as a funding source for any budgeted allocation approved by council, including external or internal funding sources. The Insurance Reserve is designed for the purpose of replacing or repairing any buildings, contents, public works, or utility belonging to the city that has been damaged, and for the purposes of paying any losses so we don't take kind of single year hits if there's a claim that has been paid out. Similarly, the Workers' Compensation Reserve is designed to counteract any budget fluctuations from year to year that would result from major work-related incidents and related payouts. That concludes the presentation.
I
Okay,
sat through the whole budget process for months on end.
go ahead.
And we have it laid out in the budget on the plan on how we're going to address the stabilization reserve. So I've read that, so I understand that. I don't have any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Get me that.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that's perfect.
So now we should refer to the budget process or
No motions are required on
the motions? Okay. All right, report number 4, North Garage replacement.
No, so we do have a second budget presentation from
Oh.
Economic Development
Oh,
and Matt
geez.
Driver and will be.
I'm gonna have to report on the North Garage.
Give us some good news.
All right, okay.
wing it.
So,
Service base, you have multiple reports. All right.
acting deputy CAO Matt Driver will be presenting on economic development, which is his normal hat. Along with campus finance manager Randy Bernard.
Is there a separate slide deck for this?
There is a separate slide deck to that.
All right.
We're just queuing up.
Okay, we're handing that out. Right.
Okay, well, thank you for having me here today. We're gonna talk about the economic development budget that I oversee in the CAO's office. So, next slide. So the agenda will be service highlights and business plan statements, followed by a discussion on performance reporting. Then we'll go into some of the budget highlights, some of the detail on the capital, operating and reserves, followed by any questions that folks may have. So some of the key achievements that my group has done over the last year. I think the biggest one was obtaining unanimous council consent for the support package for the redevelopment of the Portage Place Mall. This was a fairly significant undertaking. The other one that we did was a cost benefit analysis for the renewal and widening Keniston Boulevard. The third key achievement, and this is something that we do every year as we update, but it involves quite a bit of work, is the 25-year population and housing forecast for the city of Winnipeg. And last but not least, this was recently done in the Housing Accelerator Fund report. We did some amendments to the tax income financing policy, which will allow this tool to be used to better support construction, multifamily housing, particularly.
Just quick
in
question here.
downtown.
This 25-year population housing and employment projections, what's the name of that report? It's a report, right? Is it a
That's
public report or?
that's something that we publish every year on the website. We don't do a formal report to a standing committee. We
Right.
kind of do that on a rolling basis. That is in fact,
Where do you publish it on the website?
it's on our the economic
Okay,
development
okay.
section of
I
that.
think
Yeah, and
that's
we'll
the
be
one.
updating that because just recently StatsCan came up with new projections for the city. It's
And,
growing quite robust.
how long does it take you guys to break it down to the wards again?
So we normally come to this committee every December with a report. That's the result of a disposition from a couple of years ago. So we would intend on doing that for.
And why did, it would be better if it was like October, November from the standpoint of the budget.
We could do that if there was the
In my
will
opinion.
amongst the standing committee here to.
Instead of
push that
December,
up.
because you have the information now and then you bring it in December, you say.
Yeah,
So
I'll
we
leave that to the wisdom of
ramp it
the
up
committee
once we do.
to decide if.
Do you hear me on that one?
Okay.
Chair?
Sorry,
Okay, so we use the population,
Yeah.
when it's broken down per ward for some budget items.
yeah,
And we don't get it till December. I mean, I guess that's okay, like we do the budget.
yeah, every 4 years, how often are you talking?
So just normally, like in the budget, I mean, it's used for a few things, right? It's for the community center grants, right? we always have the macro number for the city of Winnipeg, which is kind of what we need to determine that global amount. And then when we cut it up, we do that by community catchment.
Yeah. I guess the question is, how much energy and effort is it for you to prepare these numbers? Like, I mean, I don't think it really matters if we do it on a, like, when the official numbers come out, work with those rather than trying to estimate. I don't think it's worth.
No, he does it every year.
I know, but how much work is it?
I guess if I had a preference, I would prefer to keep it the way it
December.
is.
Yeah,
Okay, fine. I just asked.
That's up to the
Yeah.
committee to decide.
okay.
That's fine.
So next slide, please. So it's the mandate of my group is to help maintain a strong and competitive economy in Winnipeg through the delivery of council approved programs, infrastructure investment, and collaboration with other levels of government as well as stakeholder organizations. So one metric that we've chosen here to kind of demonstrate that is growth in gross domestic product. This is real GDP growth within the city of Winnipeg census metropolitan area. You'll see for 2024, we set a target of 6 out of 13. That's kind of where we would normally rank vis-a-vis other major Canadian cities. Our growth was forecasted growth for 24. It's 1.9%. Initially, we thought that would be 6. Turns out that's going to be almost first. For 2025, we're setting a target of 2.7%. This is based on forecasting data from our forecasting agency. We're expecting that to be 6 out of 13, which is again historically where Winnipeg ranks vis-a-vis other major Canadian cities.
So you're projecting 6 out of 13 cities?
Yes. And that's traditionally where Winnipeg and overall Manitoba's economy, we're middle of the pack. I think that's a good thing. We're kind of a diversified economy. So being in the middle, I think has its advantages in this case. Randy,
For 2025, the service has 4.84 FTE, a combined mill rate support budget of 3.3 million and a capital budget of 5.1 million. There's a net increase of $600,000 in reserves. The departments contributing to this service include CAO's office, Planning, Property and Development, City Clerk's, Mayor's office, and Innovation and Technology.
Sorry, what's the 5.1 million? What is that?
So
What do you do with that?
we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, but it relates to the village police
No, okay.
approval.
So here we see the breakdown of revenue and expenditures for the Economic Development Service. Revenues of 832,000 is made up of a transfer from the Economic Development Reserve. Expenditures total 4.2 million, with salaries and benefits of 603,000 and services of 504,000. Grants, transfers, and other of 2.2 million include 2025 Grey Cup funding, which is a total of 1.15 million, $600,000 in cash grant and 550,000 of in-kind grants. Also include our grant payments for Center Venture, as well as municipal accommodations expense. Debt and finance charges are 841,000. The 2025 budget saw a decrease of 150,000 in revenue compared to 2024 due to a one-time contribution from Winnipeg Foundation related to Winnipeg 150 activities. 2025 expenditure budget increased 1.2 million, primarily due to funding for the 2025 Grey Cup. This slide shows a change in the 2025 projection compared to the 2024 adopted budget. There's no change in mill rates. The number of full-time equivalent positions remains at 4.84 positions, and total salaries and benefits for 2025 is 600,000.
So Councillor Lukes, to your earlier question, the capital budget relates to the council approving in September of the support package for Origin Place Mall. The 5.1 million reflects that amount, which we expect to flow in 2025. Overall, you'll see a figure of 12.1 million. That's going to go flow over a multi-year period. That pertains to the support package related to the construction of the new the extension of Edmonton North, as well as some of the work to upgrade the Skyworks. So there you see the clock tower there. That's likely going to come down in the future. Again, this slide, more detail on the phasing of that capital support. So lastly, reserve projections. There are two reserves that are mapped to this service. The first is the destination marketing reserve. This is the reserve that's funded through the proceeds of the accommodation tax. This is the 6% tax that's primarily levied on hotel stays. There are a number of expenses that come out of this reserve. Some of the money goes towards supporting the tax-supported operations. There's a grant that goes to support economic developments operations, 3.5 million. Some within that goes to city beautification. There's also money earmarked for the convention center operating grant. There's also some towards capital. And when you subtract all that out, together with some administrative fees, what's left over goes towards what's called the Events Acquisition Fund. This is the fund that's primarily administered by EDW, and it's used to go and incentivize kind of large events like the breakup, police and fire.
So what, is there a breakdown of this somewhere?
There is, yeah, it's in the council approved motion on this. We can.
Can you just send me that? I forget the breakdown. And I was
There's a lot
by a
of
hotel here the other day, so.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The economic development reserve, I mean, that's kind of a flow through reserve. It's money comes in through properties that we've TIF'd over the years, and then the money goes out towards paying those. So it's money in, money out. There's really not a lot to talk about there. That's it.
All right.
Have to do take questions.
Cool. Any questions? Councilor Lukes.
I guess just a little bit about economic development in Winnipeg, right? So you interact with them on a regular basis. They have a lot of data and information. They freely share it with the city, is my understanding.
Yep.
Anything you want to highlight working with them or?
So I sit on the board there as an ex officio member. We work very closely with them as well as the province when there's some opportunities to attract industry. They do a lot of data analytics, which I think are beneficial, continue to be beneficial. The folks that work for me also do that. So there's a good working relationship. So overall, yeah, I mean, they do add value to what we do. They also provide a lot of effort on the sort of events attraction side, which benefits the city as far as economic development and tourism and that sort of thing. So yeah, they're a good resource.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Appreciate it. So now the process I understand is, the recommendation is that we basically just, we receive the reports, I guess the department, but presentations, we don't have to receive that information.
No motion required.
So now there's the preliminary 2025 budget update. I guess we can move a motion of support at this point, if that's the will of the committee. If somebody's willing to move that. Okay. So for both the operating and capital budgets, so moved, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take a 5 minutes to grab coffee. That sounds actually a good idea. All right, we are resuming the January 17, 2025 meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. We're moving into the regular agenda. We have already moved reports 1 through 3, so we're now moving into transit. We have report number 4, which is the North Garage replacement. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Greg Walker, Director of Transit. I have with me today Jesse Crowder, our Manager of AMO,
Aaron Cook, our project manager for Zero Emission Buses, and Lori Fisher, manager of finance. And I think Jesse's going to start us off on the North Graduate Plan.
Yeah.
Great.
Good morning, everybody. So North Garage Replacement Project Update Report number 6 for the period ended October 31st, 2024. The project is on schedule and on budget. At the time of the report period, we were approximately 39% complete on schedule and 6% spent on the adopted budget. Just bear in mind that timing of the report and when we wrote it, we were just following up on a request to council and committee on additional funding for the project, which was not approved. So we were working back towards the adopted budget of $200.06 million. So I won't spend too much time rehashing that conversation because we're all well aware. But getting back into the design phase, so we have gone back to work toward getting back to the $200 million budget. And we are bringing forward some proposed facility modifications that we are looking at the moment that would include, but are not limited to, an overall reduction in the size of the facility from 43,000 square meters to 26,500 square meters, 26,500 square meters. Reduction in the storage capacity of the garage from 246 40-foot equivalent buses to 207. Number of repair and maintenance bays reduced from 20 down to 6, and then some reductions to some of the heating and cooling, ventilation components, and administration building, some other storage and maintenance for zero emission buses. Additionally, we have looked at or completed a request for qualification for the general contractor for the project. So that was in September and October. We now have 3 firms that were deemed qualified to proceed to the next phase. Those are Bird Construction Group, Graham Construction Engineering, and PCL Constructors Canada. We are working towards posting a tender for goods for long lead items such as electrical transformers and switch gears, and that's expected to go out this month. And at the end of October, Manitoba Hydro submitted a load connection feasibility study, which is essentially what they do to bring power to the site. So we're proceeding with that with them. On table 1 for contracts, we have a few contracts that have been added since last report. 2 of them were older contracts that were completed in the preliminary planning phase of the project. And then we have a new contract that I mentioned just now, Manitoba Hydro, for that power requirement. Major upcoming procurements are the long lead item I mentioned, and then we would like to get the tender for construction for the garage out in February. And then we have a second phase of consulting engineering with our detailed design team for the administration construction portion of the project. Under risks, we have one new risk, which we've included in this report, which is an impact to the schedule in order to bring the project back to the approved budget. So how we're mitigating that is we're planning to issue the tender with 99% drawings to gain some time, adding the construction drawings as an addendum shortly after posting. And then we would like to award this through SPC Public Works this year prior to the summer break. So we're working towards that, but failing that, one mitigation may be a special SPC PW4 award. Under the financial for the project, as of October 31st, we had submitted 6 financial claims to the province of Manitoba for payment totaling $1.948 million. And we'd received $1.356 million to that point. In Appendix B, briefly, I can touch on costs to date. Or as of October 31st, we had spent $11.899 million. Bulk of that being in land acquisition of 7.7, engineering design of 3.57 million, and some internal financing overhead costs of $562,000. So that would be approximately 6% of the adopted budget spent to date. Going back to the main body, property acquisition, we do have possession of the required private properties. We are undergoing the land assembly and mineral rights acquisition for it. We are still negotiating an expropriation with one private landowner and expect that to remain ongoing for some time. And stakeholder engagements, we have a second information session that we will do once we achieve 100% design, timing, and format of that. It's still to be determined with the Office of Public Engagement. That's the report.
In terms of the design right now that's being done to, shrink the scope of the original project, are things being designed in such a way that the intent is that you could somewhat easily and somewhat in a logical fashion, process wise for your internal operations, add on, like there's the logical space, like here's where we're gonna build the rest of the bus storage. Here's where we're gonna build the 14 other bays or whatever. Is it being designed, and is that being taken into account in terms of the descaling that's being done right now, so that in terms of your processes and in terms of your, operations, that it's done in a logical way for that eventual build out?
Yeah, and I said reduction in scope, but it really is something to keep in mind. It's a deferral, right? Everything we're taking.
Okay, that's how you're taking it. Good. Just
And we are taking that approach that's even in what we take down to reduce, we're kind of look at efficient move to be able to expand in the future or add in the future. Because we will need to do that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Council Lutz?
So, you've got in here, you've got a short list of general contractors. So you have a short list of general contractors. I thought the land needed some remediation, right?
Yes.
And cost of remediation of impacted soil. So you're still taking, do you know what that cost is, or do you know where you're at with that, or?
Yeah, we're working towards kind of reducing as much as we can. We're working with the province who have say on what we do on the site or off site. So still working with them on getting that license figured out. But yeah, we're working with them to try to minimize as much as we can in terms of cost and remediation. Part of the scope reduction too has been looking at the footprints and where the impacted areas are that we know of. So we're trying to reduce disturbance as well.
And the whole expropriation thing, we expropriated, you're just resolving the financial part of it, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, and you're coming back to committee in March, is it March? April, with, are you coming like with a, not the design, or what are you coming back with, just numbers, or?
We would like to come back at that point. Well, I mean, at the meeting, I'll be able to speak to some of those elements. Obviously, the timing of that report is to the end of January, so the report itself will reflect that timeframe.
Sure.
But yeah, we are looking towards bringing back costs and design. It may not be that April meeting, I think. And again, back to the scope and the cost. Until we have those bids in hand and know what we're awarding for the price, we'll know then what the defined scope is, obviously.
Right, will you have some sort of design drawings? I just think of when we approve much development, it helps to see the structured design.
Yeah, and I think our approach had been to bring those to Public Works with the award report, but we could do both. Or we could, yeah.
To bring it if you could, before the award report, the April report.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, all right. I get that, we don't like it, but maybe we'll get addition money. Okay, I'll move the report unless anyone has any other questions.
Councilor White, it's time to talk about zero emission buses.
That's the next report.
That's the next one.
All right.
So I'll
full
move
length.
the-
This is the garage.
Well, they're related. But
We haven't had a report yet on the zero emission buses. That's what Aaron's here for. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move the report.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay.
That moves us to zero emission buses.
Addition.
I'll deliver the report.
We're still the thunder.
Any questions we can answer, but so transition to zero emission buses, report number 6, same time frame, period ended October 31st, 2024. Project is on schedule and on budget, approximately 30% schedule complete and 16% of the adopted budget spent. As of that period of time, we had some disruptions in terms of supply chain, build quality and compliance issues with some late bus deliveries. And I'll get into those details a little bit more, but charging and hydrogen infrastructure is progressing, and we have some updates to our maintenance garage to support hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. So those are largely complete. In the history, under the bus rolling stock, we have a diesel contract with New Flyer with 2 extensions. The first one for 38 buses. They've all been received. At the time of the report, 34 were in service. A second extension of 45 buses was underway. We were expecting to have the last of those buses delivered this month. For the zero emission buses with New Flyer, we have 2 contracts as well. The first being for the 8 and 8 zero emission buses. We're still anticipating delivery of those first few buses. We do expect to see the first battery electric and hydrogen bus in February. And then we have awarded an extension with them for 24 additional battery electric buses. Those are expected to begin construction Q3 of this year, with delivery starting in Q1 of 2026. For the charging infrastructure, we have largely completed the charging infrastructure at Brandon Garage. We're working towards, we had been working towards electrical work for a new mobile charger as well. All those components are largely complete. In terms of the hydrogen fueling station, we have done some equipment site layout and detailed design is underway. We're developing an RFP for site development and working with the province on an environmental license. Station is on schedule to be delivered in May and commissioned in June. And then we have some maintenance garage updates that are being complete to service and repair compressed hydrogen battery electric buses in our existing garage. So that road work, as I mentioned, is largely complete at this point. I could talk about risk for 1 second, just one new item to note, and that was what I mentioned, the environmental permitting for the hydrogen station. So we are working towards some expedited design details that are required for that permit and working with the province to try to get that underway so we can complete the station this spring, summer. Financial, we have submitted as of the end of October 2024, 7 financial claims to the province totaling $25.2 million and had received $8.2 million at that point in time. Looking at Appendix B for 1 second as well. As I mentioned, so actual costs to the end of October were $44.506 million. Vast majority of that under the construction category of $43.6 million, which is bus procurements, and just is in that category of costs. We had some engineering costs of just over $500,000 and internal financing, $380,000 for that 16% of adopted budget spent. We have no property acquisition for this project. Stakeholder engagements, we are working towards media event and communications once those first zero emission buses arrive on our property. And there are no subsequent events after the report period. Any questions?
Councillor Lard.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this topic, as you may know. I guess part of what informs my interest is the transitive policy, how much transit can we deliver per dollar? And I understand that that may or may not be in line with zero emission buses. I also understand that there's a lot of uncertainty about the price of diesel fuel over time, and we also want to transition to zero carbon economy. So there's tugging, and there's two different tugs for me. One is on direct reduction of carbon, but the other is on better transit delivery, because that's a 30% chunk of our greenhouse gas emissions according to our latest report. So that's where I'm coming from with the questions that I have. So I guess my main question, well, one of my main questions is, in terms of runtime, how much time will it take for the electric buses to charge?
So a 40-foot bus charges in 2.5 to 3 hours. With planned service, a 60-foot bus has 2 additional battery packs, so that we expect to take approximately 5 to 6 hours.
Okay.
A fuel cell bus can refuel in between 5 and 10 minutes for a 40, and again, about double that for a 60-foot bus.
Okay, so then I'm thinking of an index, which would be, it would be like dollar per bus time per cost of bus. What is the best value for dollar in terms of the electric, which is down anywhere between 2.5 to 6 hours, and the hydrogen, which is like faster than diesel?
It takes about 5 to 7 minutes to fill a diesel bus right now. So a 40-foot is about comparable with the diesel fuel. A 60-foot bus is obviously a little bit slower, just bigger tanks, whereas the diesel tank on a 60 and a 40 is the same. So
on a 24-hour cycle, worst case, the electric bus is down 6 hours.
Well, but that bus would be down 6 hours anyways, like our last pull-in is around 1 or 2 AM, so the buses don't pull out again until 5. So there is a period of time where we have buses parked. So we start buses pulling in around 4 PM. When they come off peak service, and so they pull in sometime between 4 and 2 AM. So the buses would start charging when they pull in. So we have about 12 hours of natural time where a bus would typically be sitting anyways. So it's a little more complicated with electric buses because you have to kind of rotate and schedule that charging to ensure they're ready for pullout. But it's not as simple as just saying that you're losing 5 hours of deployable time because the bus wasn't deploying anyways.
I appreciate that. So going forward, Mr. Chair, in a world where the entire fleet were electric, we would have to start factoring downtime, would we not?
We have to schedule charging or schedule fueling to that extent as we would dispatching. So it becomes more complicated. So there are things we will have to purchase in the future as our fleet gets bigger to manage both energy and charging. So we will fundamentally have to be creating 2 schedules. We will have a deployment schedule and we will have a charging schedule that will be aligned to that. But it's something that we don't do today. And this was part of the things that we wanted to evaluate during the first year or year and a half of operation of the battery electric buses and the fuel cells. So battery electric has all this extra complexity that hydrogen doesn't, but we didn't have a way to really quantify the cost of that extra complexity with battery electric just through our initial study. So those were sort of the things one of the things that we were going to calculate is the extra costs that weren't considered in that original study that we did to compare a cost of a battery electric versus a fuel cell versus a diesel.
Right, but agree, disagree, in a world where we went entirely electric, would we not need a certain percentage more buses in order to have the fleet running?
Likely, yes, but it's not as black and white as what we're seeing. Like we did as part of our efforts in our infrastructure planning, created a mock battery electric bus schedule. And there was an expectation that we would need about, based on our study, that we were expecting we need about 5% more buses, but it ended up being only about 1 or 2% more that we anticipated when we factored in having the software to be able to do the scheduling of the charging and whatnot. So it's complicated and it's difficult to just say that we are going to need 20% more buses, which is what we anticipated based on our first study, or completion of our demonstration project, 7 years ago. That was the outcome of that based on the knowledge that we had today. But the technology is evolving and there are new things that are helping to bring that down, as well as you also have battery capacity that's increasing, that's shortening some of the range and times you would have to swap out buses. So it's difficult to come up with an exact percentage point today, but it is likely that we will need more. But it's a total change in how we operate transit today, because you can make efficiencies in operations with battery electric buses compared to how you operate a diesel bus. So if you're just looking at a black and white comparison, it's hard to say, because there are things that we do today, like we have buses that are just sitting as spares. Whereas if you rotated those through as part of your normal operation as a battery electric, you could potentially make efficiencies that would bring that increase in fleet down. So there are ways that we can look at this, but I can't say for sure that it will or won't result in needing more buses as a spare right now.
You mentioned a number, it started with 20%. Now you figure it might be down to how much?
So the 20% was based on en route charging, where we were operating 4 buses and the bus had to charge at that charger for 20 minutes. That was where the technology was at the time. So to account for a 20-minute headway and a bus sitting for 20 minutes, you had to add 1 extra bus. So you look at that on paper, we need 20% more buses. But that charger was underutilized. So if you had operated that with 12 buses, which is what the optimized for that be, you'd already be down to needing 10% more. So those are things that you gain with efficiency and actually having a system that's designed for electric buses.
So
Now, the new buses that we're buying are long range buses that drive 14, 15 hours. So that same 20-minute charge is different because now you're scheduling a depot charge and you don't have that loss on the street.
So we're gonna get 8 electric buses?
We have 8 battery electric buses and 8 fuel cell buses in the first order.
And then I'm interested in total cost of ownership. We run our diesel buses way longer than they're supposed to be run. And they have a near 100% uptime. seems to me the battery buses are they're gonna have batteries, their batteries deplete. I mean, at some point in the future, whereas the hydrogen cell will probably go forever.
So the batteries will degrade on fuel cells bus too, but they're managed through software on the bus, so they have projected to be less degradation than a battery electric that's cycling more often. The fuel cell does have to be refurbished, but the cost of refurbishing a fuel cell is very low compared to replacing a battery.
Right.
So that was factored into our original study that we released here in early 2022. So that took into account battery replacement, expected cost of batteries projected into the future. We projected a battery replacement every 10 years on those buses versus a fuel cell refurbishment every 10 and no or a battery replacement on those over the expected life that we were having on those buses. So we do have a 12-year warranty on both our battery electric and fuel cell bus batteries right now. So depending on how long we carry those buses, so we will, if we are carrying them continuing for 18 to 20 years, we will have an expectations that we have to replace the batteries, but not knowing what the cost is and whatnot. But that was factored in the cost analysis that we did in that 2022 report.
It sure was. What about the range of the vehicles and what is the weight of the vehicles? Hydrogen versus
So
electric.
So the battery fuel cell
Well,
bus.
versus diesel, sure. Throw them all in there.
So a diesel bus is approximately 29,000 pounds. A battery electric bus today is about 33 on the generation that we'll be receiving, and a fuel cell bus is 32,000 pounds. So they are heavier. A diesel is 29,000.
Why is hydrogen so heavy?
It still has batteries. It still has a fuel cell. It has 2 battery packs instead of 5 battery packs, so it does still have battery weight. The fuel cell is about 500 pounds as well, so it does have weight associated with it, but it is lighter than the
How much
battery.
weight does the diesel add to the bus, and like what does it leave the depot with, and what does it come back with when it's empty?
I believe it fuels about every 3 days right now.
3 days it goes.
Yeah.
But how much is the diesel weigh?
Is that factored into 29,000 pounds?
Yeah.
Right.
The
Yes.
diesel?
That's full.
That's full.
So it comes back with. 3 days later, what's it?
I don't know. It has a 200-liter tank on it, so I don't know.
200.
I believe.
Are you working with Public
Those are 3
Works
days
at
ago.
all on? I mean, these buses are gonna be going all over. It's not like they're gonna be going on the same route. So I just worry about pounding the roads, but I mean, they're all over, right?
Yeah, and the road, realistically, when you calculate damage to roads, which is also in the 22 report, but buses don't drive nearly as frequently as a truck. So the roads that we designed to be operate, there's much more damage from transport trucks than there are from buses. Where buses, you see damage is very localized. If you have a bus that's at a stop on a
Yes.
residential street, because that's a higher amount of damage. You'll see that on stops. We get complaints about buses sinking in locations, but the actual impact on the road is fairly minimal. It was difficult we didn't have a baseline when we did work with Public Works on this during the study. And based on that, we anticipate the extra weight from the zero emission buses would somewhere between 1.5% to 2% additional damage. But there was no way to quantify
Right.
that
That's
on the
good.
way that
Okay,
we studied
that's,
things.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay.
What is the cost of electricity to generate hydrogen off peak and was it on peak?
So there is no peak and on peak in Manitoba. We have a flat rate. So we are considered a large commercial customer at the facility that we're going to have the hydrogen plant. So right now we pay about just over 4 cents a kilowatt hour of electricity, and then there's a demand charge based on the peak charge.
So there's a peak charge.
The peak amount of electricity that your site uses during a month, there's a $10 per kilowatt charge on that. It does not change. There is no on peak or off peak currently. That could change in the future, but right now there's been no indication that or if and when that time of use charge will be implemented at Manitoba Hydro.
And then how many, given a bus running on a full charge, how many kilowatt hours are required? Like that $10, without the context, is
So.
Doesn't mean much.
So if a fuel cell bus, they said if you, like the.
Sorry, electric, and what electric, just if it's easier.
Yeah, so the battery electric buses, they have 440 kilowatt hours of capacity on them. We anticipate running them at about 75% of that usable capacity, which will get them between like 14 to 15 hours, maybe a little less in winter. That, I don't know what the per cost is, but it was, yeah.
So we need to add 70, so we need to add 25% to the 440 in order to quantify the amount of electricity costs needed to run. If it's 440 kilowatt hours capacity in the bus and there's a 25% loss in the charging.
The charging loss? No, there's like the chargers are about 95% efficient and there's some transfer, but I think we've estimated at 92% between losses on the bus and the charger in terms of how much your additional capacity they're putting in.
Oh.
So like off the top of my head, it was costing us about 45 cents a kilometer to operate a diesel bus. Our electric buses during the trial were about 17 cents a kilometer. Using the efficiency from that trial to what we, so it's about a third of the cost when you account for demand charges and electricity charges and the efficiency differences between the two vehicles.
Okay, so a third, I had 45 cents per kilometer.
Approximately.
That's for the electric,
That was the diesel.
diesel.
An electric bus was about 17 cents per
Okay.
kilometer, and the fuel cell bus was a little bit higher than that 45. So it was more expensive based on our estimate of, I think we had $10 per kilowatt, or sorry, $10 per kilogram of hydrogen. It would be above that. I'm not sure exact numbers on that, but.
I'm looking for comparables, so 17 cents per kilometer electric. And then how many dollars per kilometer hydrogen?
I said it would be slightly higher than diesel based on the pricing that we're expecting for hydrogen right now. I would have to relook and confirm those numbers.
If our hydrogen generation plant goes up, do we expect those costs to go down or up?
So right now the break even on hydrogen and diesel was around $8 a kilogram. So when we originally we were originally expecting to do electrolysis, which we anticipated the cost of hydrogen being closer to $6. But with the change of scope last year to the methanol, our pricing expectation is now that we'll probably be closer to $10 a kilogram for hydrogen. So we will be more expensive than diesel to operate our hydrogen buses initially.
$10 kilogram, 10 per kilogram. Okay, so $10 a kilogram for hydrogen, that's from methanol.
Yes.
So that's blue hydrogen.
It's its own, not really in the category, but yes, it's close to blue.
What's the source?
Methanol.
Yes.
Right now, the city of Winnipeg sources, I don't know where they source their methanol from conversations that I've had with Water and Waste. It arrives by a train and then is delivered by a truck from the train yard. I don't know where it comes from. We have had conversations with the equipment supplier that we are producing getting the hydrogen from, or equipment from, sorry. They do have a source of biomethanol that could be lower carbon than what we buy today. So that's a potential source in the future, but right now I don't know where our methanol comes from.
So maybe not green.
Probably not.
Probably not green. Okay. So more expensive, probably not green. So if we're gonna be buying probably not green methanol to extract hydrogen, is that right? Well, yeah, I'm trying to get into.
This seems fairly,
Very easy.
I know, of course, Mayor Gillingham has made you the tech and information person, so I mean, perhaps we could take that offline.
It's about a 60% reduction compared to diesel if you're looking for GHG numbers. I think I presented at a previous meeting here.
That's using the manufactured hydrogen for the time being. Okay.
I just have one more. So I believe you're aware of this hydrogen combustion hybrid technology. It's being trialed in Edmonton. I understand there's like hundreds of buses in the US that are using the technology.
I'm not aware of anyone in the US using it.
Private vendor, based on a private vendor. But are you aware that there's something in Edmonton now?
Yes, and I've had meetings with both Diesel Tech, who's the equipment supplier in Edmonton, as well as Hydra Energy, who was a conversation earlier. Have another meeting with them shortly, but the technology right now has been tested on coaches. This bus in Edmonton is the first one that I'm aware of that's been installed on a transit bus. Edmonton has challenges with their hydrogen supply in the last year, so they have not gotten good details on the performance of that bus at this point. So we are in communication with Edmonton on that bus on whether that technology is worth pursuing. But you have to have a source of hydrogen to be able to test that. So it's something that we are looking at and something that we could consider in the future when our hydrogen is online here, on whether we would want to do a comparison of hydrogen combustion versus fuel cell.
And just budget question. One of the reports says we're phasing out diesel. And I think proposed budget talks about looking at that question again. Is that still the case? Like, we're still phasing out diesel until?
And as far as I am aware, there has been no change to the city's climate action plan, which requires us to be net zero by 2050. So the report that I will be bringing back in 180 days, which will be the June or July meeting, I'm not sure, that will clarify the impact of this. But in order to phase out our diesel buses, we would have to start purchasing zero emission by 2032 at the latest, based on an 18-year life of the bus, in order to still meet that 2050 timeline. So I am working at scenarios and impact, and that will be presented in that report in 180 days.
But for now, we're planning to abide by the budget recommendation, which has us reverting back to diesel starting in 2027. So the report that we are going to be bringing back will address the impact of that change.
It's like, I just want the math. There's one of these options is gonna be cheaper. I guess we'll have more information later.
So we're doing a large trial.
Yeah.
So then that was our, like, we have targeted a 70% battery electric and 30% fuel cell based on that cost savings, that the battery electric would be the more expensive option, but there are challenging routes where hydrogen may result in cost savings by eliminating things that we talked, like having to charge twice a day or whatnot. So those are things that we will refine and whatnot as we get these buses on the road in the next, hopefully, couple months.
Thank you very much. Somebody prepared to move this report? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Report number 6, financial status. Yeah, thank you very much, Travis.
Thank you.
Transit is such a matrix, whether it's 9 buses, routes, whatever.
Yep.
So, okay, you give us great confidence, so thank you.
So helping me with items number 6 and 7 is Helen Haziak, Manager of Financial Reporting and Accounting, to first talk about the November forecast.
Thank you, Tracy. I will take you through the highlights of the financial status report for the period ended November 30th, 2024. The November report shows a decrease to the forecasted operating deficit of 2.9 million to bring it to 20.5 million in the tax-supported general revenue fund. The forecasted deficit in period 11 is primarily made up of 13.7 million in fire paramedic service, mainly due to overtime and workers' compensation costs, 13.5 million in public works, primarily for snow and ice clearing costs. There were some delays in implementing the proposed 911 levy, which saw a reduction in revenue of 3.7 million. There's 5.3 million in planning and property development shortfall in revenue, primarily due to lower permit fees and subdivision application fees. These were offset by the elimination of the transfer to the FSR. There was some deferral of debt costs, and there has been higher interest rate earned on short-term investments during the period. Schedule 2 provides a good breakdown of the deficit, and Schedule 3 provides a reconciliation from the last quarter. The financial stabilization reserve was drawn down by 6.7 million in period 11 to cover shortfalls in taxation revenue, leaving 9.7 million available to cover the deficit in the GRF. This will leave the FSR fully depleted with the remaining 10.8 million to be addressed with additional savings or adjustments in period 12 or to be addressed in the 2025 budget. We also want to note that there's a recommendation in the report to remove the November reporting from the committee. The rationale for that is typically the forecasts are done March, June, and September to give the committee an opportunity to make changes or manipulate what's happening with the spend during the year. This report doesn't come until after year end, so there's really not a lot you can do to make decisions on it. And we do bring a report for the December actuals forward. So we're proposing to change our reporting to March, June, September, and December. Certainly we can look at internal reporting if it's needed for
Yeah.
budget purposes.
Help us manage internal resources more effectively
Yeah,
than providing this report.
exactly.
My-
There's
my-
just not a
my-
lot you can do with it with this.
My thought is that, again, normally we're so far in the budget process, most of the time, this information isn't really all that relevant for. That said, in the year after an election, when the budget doesn't normally get passed until March, there's those decisions sometimes being made in January. So the thought is internally, without having it completely polished and, in a public facing document, they could produce the information right after an election to, give us as, much more, late Q11 type detail, or 11 reporting details.
Yeah, we remain committed to providing financial information for the budget process.
We need to do that internally.
Yeah, so that's my only thought. That's my only risk when I heard that they were proposing
Right,
this. So,
right.
okay. Any other questions on the report before us today? Okay.
Motion to move.
So the public service recommendation is the two parts, okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Report number 7, the update on the status of the City of Winnipeg provincial federal grants.
So I'll take the committee through the update on the status of the City of Winnipeg provincial and federal grants. As normal, the highlighted yellow cells have been updated since the last quarter. There are no changes to page 1 of the report. The second page of the report shows the cash position changes and revenue recognition. The highlighted numbers have been updated from the last report. There's an explanation at the bottom of the table. The main item to focus on would be the bottom section of the report for the 2024 year that shows the remaining money still to be used. Pages 3, 4, and top of page 5 of the report provides additional narrative and also talks to potential future funding, such as the Canada Public Transit Fund, the YESS, the General Operating Grant, Housing Accelerator Fund, and the Building Safer Communities Fund. Details are also included on those pages. The rest of page 5 and pages 6 and 7 provide details of capital and related projects. Page 6 shows the breakdown of future CCBF funding and the 4-year view of the strategic infrastructure basket funding. Page 7 concludes the report with details on the ICIP funding that shows small claims for zero emission buses and North Garage being received.
Just so I'm clear, is Mollard Road, did they put the money in for Mollard? 6 million?
I'm not sure.
It's on the report here.
We have received the funds from Mullard Road.
You have received the
Yes.
funds from Mollard.
It is incremental.
And it is incremental to the basket funding.
Okay, all right.
That was a fun
Confirmed.
one. That was-
Okay, okay.
It's not in the report, but just an FYI, we did receive a second installment
Yes, yeah,
just
okay,
last week.
yeah, I heard that.
It's just not in this.
Okay, that's good.
And we are working, we'll be bringing forward a admin report on page 6 of 7 provides the details of the basket funding. And we have received feedback from the province on the 2024 basket funding. We're working towards the agreements associated with each of those allocations. But there is an unallocated amount remaining from 2024 for 8.8 million, which we will be bringing forward to council for consideration so that we can wrap that up before the province's fiscal year end of 2024 and so that those funds can be released to us.
When you say unallocated, what does that mean?
They
They've unallocated it or we've unallocated it?
There was a little combination of both in this case. And there was additional funding from 2023, I believe, that has become permanent. And in the course of time, that didn't align with our multi-year, so we have internally allocated a lot of that to the True North Portage Place project. So it's just a matter of formalizing that and then with both council and the province.
So of the 93.9 million in this basket funding, what percentage are we directed to fund to projects?
That's a good question. So the recently there was an announcement of $30 million from the province that is going to be going towards Nupik biosolids. That displaces two of these projects that were on our original list. Oh, sorry, no, it's already been updated. So the $46 million of Nupik Phase 2 biosolids is part of the province's commitment. That is directed funding.
Right, so that wasn't new funding, that was just an announcement.
That was a reallocation, yeah. So it displaced two projects of our original proposal. One was amounts towards the North Garage replacement of about $20 million and amounts going towards the archives project for about 10, give or take. The North Transit Garage is an ISIP project, so they're just moving that to another year's basket for a funding. So there's a little bit of moving around from one fiscal year to another. But that again would be directed funding because that's part of the province's commitment to that ISIP contract. So so there's a couple of these items that are tied to ISIP projects, for example, and would represent the province's commitment. But they're most of the volume of the projects themselves, not necessarily the dollars, are council approved projects that are not tied to provincial direction. So I do believe that in my hunch is in the future, as we kind of look at other funding for large projects, that big chunk, it'll be a lot less but larger amounts going, less projects, larger amounts being funded from the 93 million in concert with the province.
Okay. Okay, so
Stay tuned for the report on that.
motion to accept the report.
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.